Welcome, everyone. I'm Pierre from CompetePierre, and today with me, we have Tracy Berry. Thanks, Tracy, for joining us today.
It's my pleasure to be here with you, Pierre.
Yeah, and today, Tracy and I wanted to discuss with you win-loss analysis programs because they're becoming a big part of the competitive intelligence responsibility. And when I thought about win-loss, I straight away thought about you, Tracy, because I've seen you share so much insight about how to build successful programs. So just wanted to pick your brain and ask you a few questions that may help newer competitive intelligence practitioners implement their own win-loss programs in their company.
Yeah, I think that's awesome, Pierre. I love talking about anything having to do with competitive intelligence, certainly win-loss, and I love coaching and teaching people. So this is perfect.
That's perfect for today then. And so I guess let's set the table for those who are not familiar with win-loss analysis programs. Can you just define it simply for them?
Sure. So win-loss is a process that companies use to understand why they win and lose deals. It usually involves talking to customers as well as gathering insights from internal resources within the company. Yeah. And then it's not enough just to understand, but as we'll talk about probably throughout this conversation, what to do with it once you have your insights.
Yeah, exactly. It's what you do about it, not what you know.
Yes.
And so when you think about companies that don't have a win-loss program yet, what's typically the event or the reason that triggers them to implement a win-loss program? What are the purposes?
Because people start asking questions. Why are we losing deals? That's usually the big trigger. They never ask, why are we winning deals? It's usually, why are we losing deals? Why are we not making quota? Things like that. And then people start talking about win-loss and, how to, they start talking about win-loss to better understand why they're losing 9 times out of 10. But as a program develops, you also want to understand why you win.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a very good point because, I've talked with other, win-loss practitioners, and also I've looked at other companies and how they do it. And one thing that was interesting was to see that the largest chunk of the data they had was focused on losses. And so they were doing a lot of work analyzing what they lost. They didn't do much on analyzing why they won. And how do you enable your salespeople when you don't know why they win? So I think that's also a first good tip to share with people today is please don't just focus on losses, or that's important, but also make sure that you understand why we win and you foster these practices across your company.
Exactly.
And so, okay. So that's the competing event. It's there's something you don't understand about your business that is, making you lose money, or preventing you from getting more market share. Okay. If you look at the organization, who is best positioned? Which department is best positioned in a company to own and drive the win-loss program?
That's a really good question. Well, of course, I think the number one place to put win-loss is within the competitive intelligence organization. 9 times out of 10, 7 times out of 10, that's going to be in product marketing. So product marketing generally owns it, but that's not the only place where you can put win-loss. I've seen it in business ops or rev ops. I've seen it in product management. I've seen it in enablement, and I've seen it within sales. So it's kind of depends on where it lands. Oftentimes I think it grows out of a certain place within the company, absent a CI function, or before a CI function is developed within the company. Somebody wants to know why they're winning or losing, and so it will just kind of grow organically somewhere in the company.
Yeah, I did see that too, where for me, the thinking was, think about who is the biggest stakeholder and the first stakeholder of that win-loss program. And then, probably you should be that department or very close to them. If it's, to your point, a revenue issue, the sales operation, the revenue office, or the sales leaders, that's where it should probably start with. Otherwise, CI is one because it's cross-functional. So that's the the two I've seen.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that makes sense. The one thing I also wanted to share that is very important to your point, typically now it's more and more competitive intelligence who's in charge of it. But I just want to let people understand, like, if CI owns it, please don't just make it about your competitive deals. Win-loss, in my opinion at least, should cover more than just your competitive deal. It should be, to your point, like all the win and loss reasons for all your deals, like your important deals, not just the one focused on a couple of competitors. So don't narrow down the power of win-loss by just looking at 2 or 3 competitors. No, use it for even non-competitive deals, to be honest.
Absolutely. And use it for non-competitive reasons.
Yes.
The bulk of win-loss tends to be focused on the competitive aspect, but you are engaging with someone and you've got like the best opportunity to ask them questions about things non-related to the competition or tertiary to the competition, like the journey, their buyer journey. Like, how was their journey through the process? What were the things important to them? What business drivers did it try to solve to? All of those things are really important. And sometimes you only have one opportunity to get that information. So it's much, much more than just, who did we beat? Why did we beat them? What did you think of our pricing versus theirs? That sort of thing. It's about so much more than that.
Yeah, it's more than about the competition. And so, what are I think you named a few already, but who are the departments who can be stakeholders, like, recipients of the win-loss results? Who do you share it with and why?
Yeah. I think it's any stakeholder in your company that competitive intelligence touches. Certainly anyone who touches the customer, I think, should be seeing the win-loss reports. So you're talking about not just sales or the go-to-market team, because it's not just the AEs. If you're in a software company, it's almost always an account exec plus a solutions engineer or somebody like that. But you've also got product. I mean, product's a huge stakeholder in win-loss because they want to know when you're losing because of product, they've got to know those reasons and be able to respond to those and innovate around those holes in the product. Customer success, your partners, if you go to market with a partner community, your partners need to know. And then, of course, ultimately, the C-suite is going to want to know about win-loss as well.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, C-suite is the most important one because they do the long-term strategic, decision for the company.
Right.
That's a fair point. The other, I will also add. So you mentioned sales. Yeah, completely. That should be the first one. Please, people, if you do win-loss, don't forget your renewal team, because then you might not, talk to them as much as you talk to direct sales necessarily, but they will love to understand, why they lose renewals, why people are leaving and not renewing their contract. So that's another big one. And another one I would use, win-loss with are your analyst team, your investor team, because that's a question we get a lot. Like, when we talk to analysts, we talk to investors, we talk to industry experts, and they do reports on your company. One of the key things they ask you is like, who is your competition and what sets you apart? And that's where you can really use the win analysis of your win-loss program to tell them, hey, customers tell us that they choose us over everything else because of these 3 things. And that's a really solid approach to doing analyst relationship.
Yeah, I think just to your point real quick, Pierre, I think too many times CI programs ignore the customer success teams or the renewal teams, those people who are talking to the customers currently using your product who may churn or may renew. And you've got to know what the threats are to churning. Like, why are you churning? Is it because your pricing's not as competitive anymore? Is it because your product has holes? Your account manager is a jerk. I mean, you've got to know those things, right? And so that's an area that we really need to focus on more and more from a compete perspective.
Yeah, exactly. And okay. Oh, and final thing for me on that too is like, people, it's not because CI owns it that CI has to fully pay for it. And that's why I had that question about like, who are you going to distribute the knowledge to? Because these are the people that should also contribute to your budget if you need more money. Meaning that, if you do win-loss and you share it with product management, maybe they can chip in, a few $1,000s a year to help you pay for the tools. Same thing with sales, each region can chip in a little piece of budget to help you just, in case CI does not have, the full budget for the win-loss program yet. So don't hesitate to ask them for
Absolutely.
money. You give them valuable insight that they can act on. So don't hesitate to ask them to contribute to your budget for it. And,
Absolutely.
and so yeah, okay, we get the essence of it. You know, the strategic reason to do it. So okay, your company now has decided they want to implement it. So Tracy, what's the plan? How do you plan to implement a win-loss program when you don't have one yet?
Yeah, I think that it's best to start small with the idea of growing your program as it matures and as you prove the value such that people are willing to invest more in the effort. So I have a pillar program. I have 4 pillars of a win-loss program, and 3 of them don't cost you or the company anything. One of them also you could do for free, but I would argue you should outsource. So let me walk you through those real quick. The first one is your CRM data. The big problem with CRM data, everybody complains it's dirty data. And the worst thing you can do is use dirty data to try and show win-loss. So it's important to clean house, clean up your CRM data from a compete perspective to make things more actionable, and then enable around it so that you're coaching the sales team consistently on data hygiene, why it's important, how to do it, the impact of it, etc. So that's your first, your CRM data. Your second one is internal debriefs. Again, doesn't cost you anything. You're talking to the people who were involved in the deal. What I like to do, depending on the volume of your deals, you may select a certain value to what you determine to do for win-loss, or you might decide it's a certain segment you want to do win-loss on. Whatever it is, you get in front of the team, the AE, the account exec, his boss, a partner, if the partner was there, professional services, if it's software and they're in there to implement, your solutions engineer, if they're there, anyone who touched the customer during the deal. And you debrief them, and I suggest you always ask the same basic questions, like what were the business drivers? What was the value of the deal? Who was the competitor? How did we beat them? Or why did we lose to them? What were your lessons learned? Those are the basic questions I usually ask. And then I do a write-up. And when it's a win, I publish it to anybody who will listen. And when it's a loss, I make it quietly available to people in a database, but I don't broadcast the losses. So that's your second pillar, is doing internal debriefs. Your third pillar now is the one that you should spend money on, and that's the external interview process. That's using someone external to talk to the customer or the prospect who ultimately you lost the deal from. You can do that for free, but for free by meaning you can do it in-house. The problem with that is you're always going to have a bias. You're going to have a bias in how you ask the questions. You're going to have a bias from the person at the other end. They may not want to hurt your feelings if you lost the deal, or they might not tell the truth that that the account exec fell down on the job or something, So when you get a third party doing those interviews, you get rid of some of that bias and some of that uncertainty, and you more consistently get real conversations and real results. So that's the one I would you spend money on. The fourth pillar, again, is free. It's a cross-functional team. You bring in your stakeholders for CI and for win-loss. I like to bring in account exec, solutions engineers. Sorry, I've been working software a long time. Customer success, product, RevOps, you name it, onto a team. And that team gets together and analyzes all that information that you collected from the first 3 pillars, the CRM data, the internal interviews, the external interviews, and they identify the commonalities, the trends, the concerns, and make recommendations to leadership on things that can and should be done based on those insights. So those are the 4 pillars.
Love it. And I do agree with how you started, start small, build credibility, and add over time. And by starting with Salesforce data or CRM data, then growing with the interviews, etc. Another one I will also add to that is also like start small. Don't try to analyze everything. Don't try to understand all the win and loss reasons that impact your company. Just target a specific case your stakeholders, like your executive, care about, and start with that one scenario. Like maybe it's about a specific region, or maybe it's about a specific segment or a specific competitor. Start with that, nail it down, and then expand to more scenarios across the company. Don't try
Absolutely. Don't try to boil the ocean right away.
Yes. You get burned doing that.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen times when sales leadership is concerned about a certain competitor. So we look at all the deals against that competitor. Other times, to your point, it's within a certain segment. Like, why are we losing all these deals in education? Or, that sort of thing. Because in a software company, when you're talking about, thousands of deals a quarter, you can't possibly do it all.
Exactly.
So you have to be able to filter down to what's important at that time to your stakeholders.
Yeah, exactly. So, and can you walk us through like a step by step? Like, okay, you're building now your program. So what are your step-by-step process?
Yeah, I would say, first of all, you want to define your goals, right? Like, what do you want to learn from the customer? And that can be things about the competitors. It can be things about their buyer journey. It can be, like we talked about earlier, it can be about, you can have questions about pricing, whatever it is. Consider all your stakeholders in the process. Don't try to ask 40,000 questions, but identify your goals. And then the smart thing is to work with an external vendor to help you realize how you go about finding that information by asking as few questions as possible. So the second thing you want to do is look at what you want to analyze, which is what we just talked about. Is it by segment? Is it by competitor, et cetera? If you can't look at everything, then decide what's important to you from won and lost opportunities at that time for your stakeholders. Third, I'd say, is that second pillar, gather your internal feedback. So 1 and 2, look at your CRM data and then get your internal feedback from your inside resources. Fourth is do the buyer interviews. So you're going to talk to the people who either ultimately became customers or did not buy. And I call them, prior prospects. And then you do a structured interview around that. And you're consistently asking the same questions to the different people that you're talking to. Then you want to analyze and synthesize all that data. That's a mouthful to say, but really all you're doing is looking for patterns. You're looking for, did 20 out of 30 customers say pricing was an issue? That's a pattern, right? 2 out of 30, not so much, but 20 out of 30, that's pretty telling. So you look at things like that, and then you categorize your findings, and you want to make sure that you're looking at both the quantitative and the qualitative information. Quantitative, I like to think about CRM data is very quantitative, right? I mean, it's basically numbers crunching. The qualitative is your interviews. But you can make quantitative data out of those interviews by like bean counting how many times pricing comes up, bean counting how many times product comes up, that sort of thing. So you can end up putting quantitative value to those qualitative insights. Then you're going to share those insights across the team, right? All your stakeholders in win-loss should get this information somehow. It doesn't have to be cookie cutter. They all get the same thing. You can deliver it in various methods. Like for your go-to-market team, if you have battle cards, you build into those battle cards the results of your win-loss analysis, right? Like a landmine you could set is when you learn that your pricing is better than your competitors. Or if you've got objections that you need to handle around pricing because of your win-loss tells you pricing is an issue, then you build those into the battle cards as well. Then at the same time, you go to RevOps or your pricing team and you say, hey, we got a problem, right? We need to address this. Go to sales leadership. Hey, we got a problem. I always joke about it, but the executive team and the board loves them some pie charts. So you're going to be delivering up to them, real summary information, and also your pie charts to tell visually tell the story. But ultimately, recommendations are what is the bread and butter of win-loss. It's not enough just to share the so what. You've got to share the now what. Okay, you've got to share, this is what we do, this is what we recommend we do based on this information. And that should be delivered to each stakeholder who has stake in that value or that issue or problem. So
yeah, appreciate it. Quite a lot. Quite a lot. Yeah, you shared. And I do agree, like, don't just bring information, drive action out of it. Otherwise, you're just consuming the executive time for not much. You mentioned, the first, sorry, I think it was the step 3, gather internal feedback from your salespeople, from your CRM data. And I think every CI practitioner will agree that CRM is a horrible place for data, in the sense that it could be powerful, but the data quality is always questionable. It's always like, poorly input by salespeople. Any tips you have on making salespeople more accountable and helping increase the quality of the data in your CRM?
Absolutely. I think that ultimately you want to work, I always say, make the IT guy in charge of Salesforce your best friend, if Salesforce is your CRM. Because ultimately you're going to want to optimize the fields for the best type of intelligence that you can get from the sales team. But even in the absence of that, 99 out of 100 companies have some kind of competitive related field in their CRM. It's not always good, but it's there. So you work with what you have, right? Until such time as you can revamp those CI fields, work with what you have. And by doing that, in order to do that, you need to work with sales consistently, not just one time, like, here's best practices in filling out this data. Every time they have like new hire meetings or something, get in front of the new hires. This is best practices in data hygiene for compete data, and this is what we expect you to do, and this is what I'm going to give you for it. You're going to get all this great win-loss insights that's reliable, because we know that you're putting in the data you need to put in. So it's a lot of coaching. It's kind of stick and carrot. The carrot is, this is what I can give you, and the stick is best done by getting sales leadership buy-in. Like, they're the ones who tell the sales team, this is important. This is something you need to do. And when you have that, that's half the battle.
Yeah, I was going to say, I talked to a few sales, leaders, and to your point, the stick that they gave me was, make it the manager responsibility, meaning every manager should review with their account exec, like the post-mortem of each deal. And then, to your point, if we don't have the quality of the information, that is then, brought up to the leader, to the VP, and it's the manager's responsibility to explain why they didn't do it correctly. So that's the stick they gave me. The carrot they gave me, like, make it, if you can gamify it and say, guys, every quarter, the sales rep that give us the best win-loss reason gets, $100, $200 gift card or whatever, and gets like a 5 minutes to explain their deal on the whole hands. That was something that could work for, some organizations.
It doesn't even have to be high value. They just want bragging rights, right? Honestly. And just to go back to something there, the easiest thing to do is prove the lack of value in your CRM data if in fact it's pretty dirty. You like slice and dice it and then show people how, it's of no value because 90% of your deals have no competitor listed, right? That's right away. You can't say there was no competitor, or, they say that you competed in the deal against Acme, but you won the deal against Super Smart, and Super Smart was never listed at the beginning. So how could you possibly have won? And it's things like that you can show the lack of value and then the art of the possible, right? Like if we had this, let me show you what we could give you. So
yeah, and you bring good points because I think you're right. Like analytics can be your friend, and to your point, have your Salesforce engineer work with you on analytics because that's something you can use. We know, in IT, we say about 65% of your deals have a competitor. So if you have analytics for each CRM user, and you can see that, oh, this user has only 10% of his deals with competitors, whereas the rest of your users are like 45, 65% with competitive deals, that tells you that you need to go talk to that user and say, hey, how come you have only 10% of your deals with competitors? Are you sure you're asking the right question to discover? So to your point, use analytics to identify the people that are not playing the game correctly and the top performers that are playing it correctly, and reward them, recognize them. The other thing I'm really excited about nowadays is, of course, AI, because I hope it can really help us get the information and simplify the input of information for sales. But one thing you can also use it for is verify what sales put into the CRM. The example you just gave, they tell you in the computer field it's computer 1, but then in the loss reasons they talk about computer 2. I'm like, there's a disconnect between what they are telling you in the different fields. And that's why AI can just, basically do at scale a matchup for every deal and say, hey, this deal, everything makes sense. This deal, there is a conflict of information between these two fields. Notify the sales to go clean it up. So I hope the analytics and AI are going to help us control the quality.
Yeah, when you're in a company where your deal cycles are super long and the number of like new logos or whatever that you win every quarter is minimal, you can follow up on every deal. And I suggest you do so. But in the realm of software where there's 5,000 deals a quarter, it's impossible. And that's where you have to coach and train and cajole and threaten the sales team into inputting their data correctly.
Yeah, big work. And I may have a bit led the witness, but one of the questions I had for you today also was like, so when you look at the practice of win-loss analysis, it has been going on for decades. I mean, probably even longer outside of business. What do you think is the current or next disruption for win-loss analysis?
The current disruption is obviously Gen AI. AI itself has been involved in like the platforms and the tools you can use, you can subscribe to. AI has been there for a while, but Gen AI is kind of the big game changer in that. And I mean, I can't give you a demo to like visualize what I'm saying, but suffice it to say, it does help you slice and dice data, draw from multiple sources, kind of summarize things for you, do some of the groundwork analysis. And that just frees you up to do. It's like a force multiplier, right? I mean, it doesn't take your job away from you. It helps you be able to do more. So
yeah. So you use it. I mean, you've seen AI make a difference in the analysis, you say. Are other steps of the process that you've seen AI enhance?
Well, even just gathering the data, right? Like instead of you having to read through 25 interviews and kind of pull out the points, you just pop all those into your ChatGPT or whatever, and say highlight the trends. You prompt the ChatGPT or your LLM with what you need to know based on those 25 interviews, and it spits out the answer, right? So of course you got to verify, trust but verify, even with Gen AI. So
yeah, but that's a fair point. And talking about also getting input, one thing I'm curious about is all these AI powered interviews, because one thing I've seen being a challenge when you do win-loss is scaling the interviews with customers, because it takes time. And I start to see these tools pop up that they're like, you teach the AI how to proceed with an interview, and it just go do the interview for you. So it's a bit dystopic because the human is not talking to a human anymore; they're talking to an AI. But I mean, I've seen it in practice, and it's pretty impressive that the AI asks the question you tell it to ask, but then it can do follow-ups when it finds something interesting, and like it gives you a richness, wealth of information without having to talk directly. So it's better than the surveys. So I'm really excited to see where that's going to go.
I think it's very societal. Like, I would be offended if somebody sent me an AI powered interview, I would. And I wonder how many other people would be.
Well, that's going to be, yeah.
Until it becomes the norm and we all just accept it, I guess. But I think the personal touch is still, of value. And it's a good point, though.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the truth. I don't know what's going to win, but I'm really interested to see to your point, like, where is it going? To your point, probably some people and some even entire industries are going to be against it. But being in tech in the Silicon Valley, I think that we are more like inclined to try it. But something to investigate. But to your point, also, guys, be careful, like how you approach your customers. You don't want to rub them off.
That's exactly right. You have to be careful. Yeah, maybe in high tech areas when you're approaching the customer and they work in high tech, maybe they'll be more inclined to. But if you're talking to people in manufacturing, that sort of thing, I think they might be pretty ticked off if they got a very impersonal AI interview. So anyway.
But, and the other one that I do like you mentioned too is like once you accumulate all these surveys, all these interview transcripts, you have a gold mine. It takes time to mine it. And that's why I think AI, being able just to ask the AI bot, okay, from all these interviews from this region and that segment, tell me what are the top stuff, reasons we lose or we win. I think that's also going to get, as CI people, is going to save us so much time doing the analysis.
Absolutely.
So that I'm really excited about. So AI, we have to, play with it. Maybe to your point, don't use everything yet.
Right.
But please, if you investigate your win-loss program, consider how you can scale it, automate it as much as possible. And talking about that, any service, any tools you recommend people look at?
Oh, yeah, definitely. There are, as far as tools go, there are two that I'm aware of out there that are like competing head to head right now. And those are Closed, CLOZD, and Clue with a K, KLUE. They both offer not just a platform for win-loss, but they also have the cadre of experienced people to do the actual interviews as well. So they take the data, the qualitative data out of the interview, pop it into their engines, and a lot of things get quantified as a consequence within their platform, which is very helpful. That's probably a very basic way of describing it, but that's kind of how I see it. There are other firms out there that specialize in doing win-loss interviews beyond Clue and Closed. Ellen Naylor is a fantastic resource within the Compete community. EllenNaylor.com. She is, I don't think she'd mind if I said that she's kind of old school. She doesn't have a lot of platforms, or she doesn't have any platforms or anything like that, but she is like the diva of win-loss interviews. And she has a lot of information on her website as well about win-loss. That's very, very useful. There are other interview companies out there, Primary Intelligence, Fletcher CSI, Fletcher CSI. Those are two that off the top of my head. Aurora WDC, I believe, still does win-loss. They're out there. Just Google them, I guess. But those are ones that have been in the community for a long time that I really respect.
Yeah, I do agree with you. These are, I mean, I'm not familiar with Ellen Naylor, but like Close and Clue for me were the most impressive ones, because to your point, comprehensive offering, they gave you the AI platform, they gave you the services for surveys, the services for interviews. They have large team across the world, so they're really well positioned to help you when you have large scale programs to implement. Really love these guys. Final question for you, I think, today. So, okay, we get the process, we get the people to engage. Now, we're about to get into it. What are the, how you call that? The factors like that people must consider? What are, like the budget, the time, the headcount? Like, let's say we have people that want to implement it tomorrow. Yeah. how much should they expect to spend, how much time, how many people? Do you have a
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you that a team of one could build those 4 pillars
Mhm.
as just a team of one. But ultimately, I think that as a CI program matures, assuming win-loss is within CI, because that's where I think it should be, you've you're going to need more people to do the heavier lifts because more people become dependent on CI from strategic perspective, sales perspective, et cetera. I've actually seen a trend within the Compete community around hiring full-time win-loss managers. I love that. That's actually on my dream team list, is to have someone who just focuses on win-loss. That would be fantastic. As far as budget goes, like I mentioned earlier, 3 of those 4 pillars need no budget. I think what you do is try to build on those first 2 pillars, the CRM data and the internal briefings or debriefings, to lend credence to your 3rd pillar, doing the external interviews. If you can show the value of what you can do versus the increased value of what could be done externally, it will help build your business case for a budget. You will need a budget. Most interviews out there, I don't know anybody doing otherwise. I've been quoted many times around anywhere from $1,200 to $1,400 an interview. So think about that. You're not going to be doing 100 or a quarter probably. But so you kind of have to think about that in your first stage of defining your goals and, what you really want to get out of things. And then executive support's really crucial. If you don't get executive support, you're not going to have anyone sponsoring you when it comes down to getting the budget. And without that, you can only do so much at the end of the day without those external interviews. So,
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. And Gartner published a report on win-loss win-loss analysis vendors, and there's like over a dozen names that they have in it. And and I looked at them, and to your point, like live interviews where they do it for you, it goes like from I think it was like 12 to $1,500 or $1,400 one interview. So use them, strategically. I also seen some they'll give you like more basic interviews around $700 or so, $500, $700 or so. One thing to also consider is like surveys. If you do win-loss analysis, have a survey tool to be able to scale and lower your cost, because surveys typically are way cheaper, where you get for $1,000 or $2,000 a year, you'll get easily 1,000 to 3,000 survey responses. So that lowers your budget to start. Now, I'll tell you, if you look at vendors, look at one that, if you're a small team, small CI team, look at one that has a platform that can help you analyze data, because otherwise you're gonna go, you're gonna overwork yourself. And I'll tell you, there is like at least 6 or 7 vendors in that Gartner report that have a platform to offer, like Clue, Closed, or we're parts of them. And I'll tell you that when you look at these 6 or so vendors, expect that the basic platform probably is going to be $15,000, $20,000 a year, just the basic one. And then if you want more features, they'll go a bit higher. But just so you know, the budget you need to plan if you want to do like external research. You have that base, $15,000, $20,000. Plus the surveys, a few $1,000s a year, plus the interviews, $500, $1,000 an interview, basically, a bit more. So,
but I know, I don't know about Close so much, but I know Clue can arm you with a lot of data about how investing in their platform, what it does for your ROI, what it does for your win rate, what is the value of increasing your win rate by 2%, 5%, multiply that out. And all of a sudden, your program is more than paid for itself. So those are good too. Or ask ChatGPT. I'm sure they have an answer for you too.
I mean, the ROI, depending on your industry, of course, but a couple of deals, and typically your first stage of your program is paid for anyway already.
Yep, absolutely.
So, but plan for the budget, plan for the time, because the implementation is going to take you a lot of time, like planning, scoping the project, planning the survey question, planning the interview questions, putting the analysis tool in place, extra, a couple of months of work just to get it up and running. Well, Tracy, I think we could spend a few more hours, but
We could talk about this forever.
Oh,
Yeah.
but I know it's late your time where you are. So really appreciate you taking the time. Folks, if you have more follow-up questions, please go on LinkedIn, look for Tracy Berry. I really recommend you talk to her if you have any win-loss questions, because yeah, she can share a lot more with you guys. And with that said, thanks, Tracy, for your time today.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Pierre.